Welcome back, everybody. We're the Three Stooges, Joe Davidson, Sacramento Bee, Chris Jackson, West Coast Preps, and Jordan Georgeson of Gold Country Media. So we are covering high school sports under the umbrella of the CIF, up and down the state, topical issues, players who are doing good things, guys in college, women in college looking to continue to do good things there. The NFL draft is coming up. So today's menu, we're going to take a look at the NFL draft with a focus on some local people, including a guy who's so easy to root for over the years, a guy who was kind of the everyman person until he puts shoulder pads on and carries a football. That Cameron Scatabo with Rio Linda High School links. We got a couple local college guys. I'm going to defer big time on Chris and Jordan on the Boras Baseball Classic and how good some of the Placer County teams and the other teams from Elk Grove and what's going on in Stockton, the Bay Area, and all that. So what the Boras is all about, why it's a big deal, and who won it, and who to look for. We'll talk about the Division One bounce backs. And what's that mean? Guys who have committed to scholarship programs, girls or guys, different sports, and then they bounce back. They go to a junior college, they go to a local college. Why that's a bigger deal now than ever. And we've got so many more other things to touch on, but there we go right there. Why don't we just jump right into it real quick since it's fresh before we get the NFL draft? But Chris, why don't you and Jordan break down the Boris Classic, what it's all about, who did well?
Boras Classic is what you may call the NorCal playoffs, the NorCal championship before the NorCal championship. Because invite only tournament, it's not just one of those invite only quote unquote camps, right? Where they invite everybody. No. They invite the premier baseball programs out there. Franklin of Elk Grove, De La Salle was there this year. Sarah, who's been atop our NorCal rankings throughout this year. They're not anymore because now the champion of that tournament actually is, right? So it kind of goes to show you how big this thing is. St. Mary's of Stockton, Rockland, Whitney, Liberty of Bakersfield, St. Ignatius. It's a loaded field run by the Boras Foundation. Probably recognize the Boras name, Scott Boras, the agent who is, you could probably argue, the biggest in sports. If not, he's right up there with Rich Paul, who pretty much runs the biggest NBA clients, as the biggest guy, biggest agent for them. But Scott Boras, an Elk Grove graduate, an Elk Grove guy, right? Having the tournament right up here. And what a week it was. The Sac-Joaquin section, we've talked about it before. I think this further cemented the Sac-Joaquin section is, in fact, now the best one in Northern California when it comes to baseball. It kept kind of closing that gap now this year when you look at our NorCal rankings, especially today. I think we had 13 or 14 of them in there, three Central Section teams, nine Bay Area teams. That goes to show you. But top three finishers were actually from the Sac-Joaquin section. Whitney took third place. We'll get into them in a minute, but they took third place. The championship was Rockland against St. Mary's of Stockton, and St. Mary's of Stockton went to the NorCal D1 championship last year, lost to a Granada team who's actually number two in NorCal this year, but they had a heck of a run. St. Mary's, there's nothing to scoff at for Rockland to fall into a team like St. Mary's, the team they actually lost to in the Sac-Joaquin Section championship last year. But St. Mary's has four or five elite pitchers. They all pitched well. The first two guys they threw this week actually
Hey, we
threw
just
a
look.
game. Tanner Grove going to Cal through a complete game. Nico Bavaro, a junior, going to UCLA through a complete game. Jeremy Krause, third start of the year in the championship game against Rockland, threw a great, five and a third, five and two-thirds innings. Gave up just three runs, but they've got it all. They've got that. They've got a leadoff hitter in Alex Escalante who gets on base. You've got a shortstop in Brady Ericart who's going to Cal. You've got Dax Hardcastle who's going to Mississippi State. He's got a pro arm at third base. I'm not just putting that lightly. The kid is unbelievable. Three home runs in the tournament, two against Midi. In that Midi game, they put the run rule on Archbishop Midi of the West Catholic Athletic League. They beat Rockland. They've had a huge week when you look at the results, right? They had beat Cardinal Newman 8-1. They had beat Midi 10-0. They had beat St. Ignatius 7-2, and then they beat Rockland 6-1 in that championship game. Huge, right? This is a team that is as good as it gets. I think that's probably maybe a preview of how the D1 kind of playoffs can shake out, them and Rockland again. But Rockland and Whitney had great showings. Whitney beating De La Salle. What they got pitching wise, Corden Petty, we'll see if he throws again this year. Hasn't pitched since late in March. I know Jordan can get more into that, but Brady Estes 13 strikeouts one game. Braden Jenis was phenomenal against De La Salle and kind of sent shockwaves. And Noah Warner tossed 8 innings in the third place game to beat St. Ignatius. So Goes to show you Sac-Joaquin Section baseball right now, and especially City of Rockland and St. Mary's down south, kind of running Northern California baseball right now.
One thing interesting about this Whitney team is, and Joe, and I know you remember this, but a few years ago, well, Tri-City Little League had a couple runs where they were knocking on the door of Williamsport, and I believe last year's senior class and this year's senior class were mostly the kids that made up that Tri-City Little League team at Whitney. That was, I think, one win away from getting to Williamsport. They got to play on ESPN. So these kids have that baseball pedigree. And Chris, I know you kind of hit on it, but I think as impressed as we were, I mean, with Sac Joaquin as a whole and, St. Mary's, Rockland, Whitney taking those 1, 2, 3 spots, I think the story of the week might have been Whitney. I mean, day one, Chris and I were sitting there talking to each other like, I can't believe what Rockland just did. They look like they could be the best team in NorCal. And what does their crosstown rival do on Tuesday? They say, anything you can do, I can do better. They go out there. And I mean, Brady Estes makes that statement against Liberty, and then that De La Salle wins huge, and they were up on Rockland big. Rockland just used a little bit of their black magic or whatever it is that they do to find ways to win games late and come back. But I mean, I was talking to Jackson Watt on Tuesday night, Whitney's head coach, and I kind of asked him what it was that got into this team, and he goes, "I don't think anything really got into them in terms of just it's kind of their schedule paying off for them. I mean, if you look at who they played in non-league, Oakmont, they lost 2 in 9 innings. That was a game Chris and I were at. Franklin, top team in the area. They beat Cardinal Newman. They beat West Park. They beat Vacaville. And then outside that, it's SFL play and then the Boras. So, I mean, they've been tested against the best of the best teams. I don't think they played a single team lower than Division Two. And I think everyone they played is going to be a playoff contender, and most of them are going to be hosting playoff games from what you've seen in non-league. Um, their pitching staff is figuring it out. They've got some young talent coming up, and Gordon Petty is their X factor. Talking to Watt, he had said that it's kind of a lingering thing. With him, and they're kind of just playing it safe in a way because Gordon Petty has a lot of baseball ahead of him in his future. He was committed to Texas. Now he's going to be at Cal Poly next year. One of the best pitchers in the area. I think we've all had the pleasure of watching him pitch, and it is a different game. When that man is on the mound, they have a chance to beat anyone. And if they can get him back, I think I think right now Whitney's a scary team going into the postseason because now they have confidence. But if they can get him back, this is a team that, yeah, they may be, 10 and 11 in sixth place in the SFL. I wouldn't count this team out at all yet. I mean, they're scary. They just went and showed it against some of the top teams in NorCal. I mean, De La Salle's been the a stalwart of the NorCal playoffs. St. Ignatius, I watched a little bit of some of their games. They look like one of the top teams in NorCal. They're 0-4 against Rockland, but 3 of the 4 games have been decided by 2 runs or less. They're 2-1 in the last week in the SFL. Their only losses by 1 to Jesuit, who's number 2 in the area. They play them again tomorrow. I mean, Whitney is a team that I say they kind of put a lot of the section on notice. Watch out for them right now.
They've got confidence, they've got belief, and they've got those young guys. 3 of their 4 infield starters in that De La Salle games who were freshmen or sophomores. Then you've got a freshman pitcher, Chase Cotton, who he was the starter in that Rockland. He pitched great. It was errors that were the undoing. It was nothing that he did. He pitched a heck of a game. He's got a lot of swagger, great velocity, great movement on his pitches. So you got to think this is not a team, whether they have Gordon Petty or not. I don't think anybody wants to face them. Let's say you get to the section semifinals. I don't think you want to face them in a 3-game set.
Well, that's good stuff. And baseball is big around here. I remember when the Boras was created a few years ago. So the Northern California champion will play the Southern California Boras champion later this spring. It has no bearing on the CIF brackets or anything except for maybe head-to-head competition if you're seeding and all that. But it's a cool deal. A reminder, there are CIF Northern California baseball and softball playoffs, but no state championships for those sports. Otherwise, we'd be playing well into June and peaking into July. So we should appreciate what we have. This has only been around for a few years. It took years and years to get this going. And how these things come about, it's the member schools vote. They have advisory committees. These are all things that coaches and schools want, and they're open to ideas. The CIF governing body, but it takes time. The state football championships in this state didn't start until 2006, so it took that long. They had it back in 1910 or so, but only with a handful of schools. So good stuff for the CIF, and we'll touch on this in a minute, just to have some baseball spread out throughout the show. But Chris Jackson, West Coast Preps, and I did for the Sacramento Bee, we did our Baseball Player of the Year watch list. Nick Pecoraro, our good friend, helps us. The West Coast Preps does Premier Preps, also helps me a lot with Sacramento Bee coverage. He has a softball watch player list. One thing that's pretty clear, listening to you guys talk and some of the coverage and all that, but the Sierra Foothill League is so big in all kinds of sports. We know that. But baseball, softball, Del Oro, baseball and softball. Oak Ridge, big time in softballs, had some success in baseball. Rockland, Whitney, I might be missing a couple, but we don't see the Folsom Bulldogs there. Folsom Bulldogs baseball has been solid, but hasn't had a championship program in a while. And softball was Sacramento Bee ranked number one maybe 2 years ago out of nowhere, and then has dipped again. So we'll see. And nobody's weeping for the Bulldogs of Folsom in any sport when there's no success right there. But quick thoughts on that, guys, on just how the SFL, and we touched on it, but unless I'm missing somebody, Del Oro softball, baseball, Oak Ridge softball has earlier this season in baseball, Rockland both sports, Whitney. Wow. And they don't slow down. And Jordan, you're right. Don't worry about the records. It's the impact of pitching and coaching and all that.
Yeah, it's and speaking of the impact of pitching and coaching, I think Del Oro softball embodies that perfectly. Sean Erickson has been the head coach of that program, I think, before I was born. I mean, he's been there for forever. I think you can maybe count the number of losing seasons he's had on one hand. He is just oozes positivity. He develops those players so well. He coaches a bunch of those girls in travel ball. The ones he doesn't coach for in travel ball, he coaches against. He knows that team like the back of his hand. His program, I think they're risen up to like number 22 in the nation right now. And their pitching is a big story of that. Michaela Finn has, I think, well over 100 strikeouts, but her strikeout to walk ratio last year was something like 55 to 28, and this year it's something like 100, over 100 to like 11 to 12 walks, or something unbelievable like that. I'm actually seeing them later today against Destiny Christian. And yeah, I think if you look at up and down the line, I mean, the coaching and the pitching in the SFL is unbelievable in both baseball and softball. Rockland baseball might have the best and deepest pitching staff in the area. Joey Lorenzini, every time he goes out to throw, there's at least 10 radar guns on him. I think I've seen the Royals and Padres at every single one of his starts with scouts out there. And I mean, he's a guy that you got to be looking at to be getting drafted soon. We talked about how deep Whitney's pitching staff is. Jesuit's got a good pitching staff. Davis has got a good pitching staff. I mean, Granite Bay has a good pitching staff, and another great coach in Esposito. He's won 3 straight section titles. And I think if you ask him, he'll be the first to tell you that he did not have the best team 3 years in a row. So a testament to this area where we're blessed with having great pitchers, great coaches. And I mean, we've all said it, as fun as the 10 to 11 slugfest games are, I think everyone appreciates watching a good pitcher just go to work. And there's something to be said about a good 2-1 game or 3-1 game where you just watch a great pitcher go and dominate and do what they do best, and watch them go through a lineup that's stacked with guys that can hit. I mean, like Lorenzini did against Sarah on opening night of the Boras. He just picked that lineup apart. And I mean, we've seen Caden Nichols do it a few times up at Bear River. It's watching a good pitcher is such a treat, especially in this area, and we're lucky to have a lot of them.
Yeah. And
Well, and you think about, oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, okay, sure. Folsom, I'll just kind of go to the bottom of the league too, really quick. Folsom, I don't think they're going to be in the bottom for long. With Sal Rivera, their first-year head coach, had a historic run at Vista Del Lago, moves across town, and Oak Ridge had a great Boras Classic showing too. I'm surprised I didn't mention them earlier. They won 3 games there over Cardinal Newman, Mitty, and San Marin. So even these quote-unquote bottom teams of the SFL would compete in 90% of leagues, at least in Northern California.
No doubt, no doubt. And it's not going away soon. These leagues have been so good for so long. And, I'm just going to mention a few softball names really fast just to piggyback on what you were talking about, Jordan. But Abby Davidson, no relation to me, but except for the great last name. Del Oro, She has 11 home runs. That's tied for the most in the section. Going to Texas Tech, and the Golden Eagles of Loomis are 19-1, so they're a powerhouse. She's hitting 484. Michaela Flynn Del Oro, Jordan, you mentioned her. She is 11-1 in the circle, 131 strikeouts. Ava Messina is a great 1-2 punch. She's 8-0 as a pitcher. So there's a 1-2 punch there. Tylee Kitchen, we've talked about her. You've talked about her, Jordan. We've all talked about her. San Diego State commit, is Whitney High School's all-time basketball rebounding leader, and she's been terrific as a section champion as well in softball. Let's see, Brooklyn Parator of Oak Ridge. They've been our Sacramento Bee team, top-ranked team all season. Leads the Trojans with a 521 average. Peyton Pryor of Rockland. She's got 12 wins in the circle. You know who she's going against, heavyweights there. So Ellison Schroeder of Oak Ridge is supposed to be a 1-2 pitching punch there, but when Kennedy Freeland went out with an injury, here's Schroeder. She's just cruising right along. 98 strikeouts, 78.1 innings. We would be lucky to foul her off. Carly Short of Oak Ridge, with a name like that, you know she plays shortstop. And just right on down, Katie Wetland of Rockland is doing big things there. So just name after name after name. They're all going to colleges. They're all good students. They're all good kids. So just really cool. So, all right, let's shift really quick to the NFL draft. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, held in Lambeau Field. It will not be the frozen tundra because it's thawed out. We have one local guy that I know for sure will get drafted, and that's Cameron Scatterbo. And he's always been easy to root for. He plays with fury. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. Grew up in Rio Linda. His father was a multi-sport star there. And in 2018, won a state CIF championship on his home field. And he's stiff-arming guys and running all over the place. And only Sacramento State offered him a scholarship. The only school that the coaches then said, we see something in him. At the very least, he'll impact your practices. Well, he impacted the Hornets as they won Big Sky Conference championships. And then he transferred to Arizona State. I don't think he was a quitter. I think he wanted to look at how he could do it at a higher level. We see it all the time with the portal. Arizona State, man, is he a man. And we saw all those great clips. Google this man's Cameron Scatterbo. He can throw touchdowns, catch touchdowns, run with power, run with fury. And he's Pro Football Focus, or one of those .coms, has him listed as the third best running back in the draft. So fantastic. This will be fun to see. He's a blocker. He's a good guy. Every time I'd see him at Sac State, he'd always stop by at a practice and he'd point at his beard and say, how's it look? Is it trim, clean, nice, good job. So he's got some personality, and I'm rooting for the kid. We're not supposed to root for kids, but this guy is so good for Sacramento and loves this region. And I think Rio Linda, he has done Rio Linda proud.
Scotabo owns one of my favorite college clips I have ever seen. I actually watched it live instead of in like a YouTube highlight. But it was the season opener with Sac State a few years ago when he was at they were playing Utah Tech, I believe. And he scampers into the open field, and I think this play personifies the type of player he is perfectly. Breaks a couple tackles, get in the open field, shows that getaway speed. He can trot into the end zone like it's nothing. And instead, what he does is Dixie State has a defender cutting, and Scatterbo plants and lowers his shoulder and runs over the defender on his way into the goal line when he could have walked in untouched. And I think that just goes to show the type of player he is, where that kid loves contact, and you don't get guys like that often. I mean, how often are you going to see a kid decide, no, actually, I don't want to take the easy touch. I want to run a kid over on my way into the end zone as well. I mean, he's a fun kid to watch, fun guy to root for. And I mean, Chris, we're both Raider fans in need of a running back. I don't think I would hate it if he ended up in silver and black by the end of the week.
No, I think that would be a heck of a snag to get him with where you're seeing him projected, second, third round potentially. I don't know if there's better value than him. You're seeing kind of the running back spot make a little bit of this comeback, just in terms of value in the NFL. And I don't see why he wouldn't be highly valuable. That strength is going to translate to the NFL, and that vision is going to translate, and there's no doubt about it.
And some people will knock all the measurables. Is he fast enough? Is he big enough? Oh, he's plenty big enough. And he's, some guys are fast with a ball in his hand, and he is. And watching film, you just see this guy in film, his Sac State film, his Arizona State in the playoff last season in January. Just a a man. He's going to really help somebody. Two other guys on the draft radar. We've covered these guys and we've talked about these guys. Jackson Slater, a 4-year starter at Sacramento State in the trenches, offensive trenches. He's played all 5 offensive line positions at Sacramento State, which is remarkable. And he's projected as a center. And I saw his pro day workout. And he was talking to a lot of NFL people. Not all of those guys were. I think he had more dialogue with NFL people coming over and making appointments than anybody else. So he could be a third, fourth, fifth round. There's only 7 rounds of the draft. It's amazing. There used to be 15 rounds, 17 rounds. The draft goes, first round is Thursday, and then second, third, fourth, I think maybe is on Friday, and then the other rounds are on Saturday. And the reason there's only 7 rounds is the Players Association pushed to have fewer rounds, so that way an undrafted guy, let's say any of these guys we mentioned, Jackson Slater, another one's UC Davis running back Lane Larrison, if they don't get drafted, they could sign with the team that they best have a chance with. So it's so hard to make the NFL. You think about every training camp, Jordan, there's 100 NFL guys in a camp, and then they cut it down to 53. And then every year you got waves of college kids coming in for a new batch. So it is hard to get in the NFL. We've applauded guys like Stone Smart of Del Oro, who's in the NFL, and Eddie Vanderdoes of Placer up in Auburn. He played in the NFL. It is hard to get in there. Shaq Thompson, Eric Armstead, both first round picks 10 years ago. Shaq from Grant, Eric Armstead with the 49ers at first out of Pleasant Grove. It's hard to get in there, but Jordan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And these guys work so hard to get there, and they appreciate draft day or to even be on a radar.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like you say, it's hard work to get there. We've seen how many great players have we seen that don't make it in the NFL? I think there have been years where we've seen, there was a year, I think Ohio State had like the Heisman winner and he didn't even get drafted. It's hard to make it here and it's hard to stay here. It's hard to get that second contract. So for these guys to get this, I mean, that is huge because every single year, there's, like you say, a new crop coming in, new guys. There's always going to be someone hungrier. There's always going to be someone bigger, stronger, badder. But if you have that work ethic, it takes a lot to get here and it takes a lot to stay here. And the kudos to these local guys that have done it because I've seen some incredible players. I mean, a few years ago, I believe it was Joey Capper or Jacob Capper. It was one of the Capper brothers at Placer High School. They had a few great ones come through there. Spent years and years on the practice squad with the Bills, and he did everything right, but just kept getting cut from practice squads and moved to different teams and didn't even end up getting in a game, but he got to suit up for a game. And he talked about just the amount of work it took to get there. And it's not, there's times where it's not always just the work, it's the luck that it takes too. I mean, you can do everything right, but then you also need to stay healthy. You also need to maybe get a break to where you get called up and maybe a situation where you not only you get called up to get addressed, but then you get to get in a game and show something. I mean, it's a cutthroat league and a cutthroat world, and anyone who's reached this point, kudos to them. And anyone that's dogging people that make it to this point, they have made it further than 99.999% of people that ever put on pads have gone. So I won't dog anyone that's made it to this point. Kudos to all of them.
Right, Chris. I mean, this is the Major League Baseball draft, which is going to be in July, and we all these players you guys have mentioned today, and stars in Placer County and Elk Grove and whatever, and they all want to play in college and play in kudos. And who wouldn't if you got some skill and talent? And it is hard. It is hard, but this region does pretty well in those sports.
It's about the hardest thing to do. And let me pull up some stats that actually a Grant football coach posted this weekend that I think is just tremendous and shows how hard it is to make it to this point. So let's go to high school football players. Out of 1,000, any college level, the number who makes it out of those 1,000, 73. 28 of those go D1 at the FBS level. 16 of those go D1 at the FCS level. 13 more go D2. 16 either go D3, JUCO, or NAIA. And then think of how small that percentage is. Then have that percentage then for the amount of those guys that actually makes it to the NFL, then a crazy percentage that even goes from practice squads, staying in the NFL to being on 53-man rosters for a few years and then becoming sustainable and a 10-year veteran. So to make it to any level of that means you're among the elites of the elites. And Jordan said it best. The stars also have to align. You see that with championship runs in the NBA. Stars have to align. Maybe you get a break or two, but I think a lot of situations, I'm a firm believer that you earn your luck and you earn some of those breaks through that work ethic, through that belief, and through everything else that you do.
No, that's really good. And over the weekend in the Sacramento Bee, I did a story on some of our Sacramento Bee Players of the Year guys for our watch list. We have a overall MVP, we have a large school Player of the Year, medium school, small school, and so we just put together 20 names. Chris Jackson did you call him more of the athlete of the year thing. That's even a bit more prestigious name, and you did that for West Coast preps too for this region and all through Northern California. But some of the guys we'll just throw out real quick. Mason Belding of Del Oro. You're talking about all the star power and up in the Sierra Foothill League. They're in a playoff hunt, hitting 431, 5 home runs. Eli Burnham of Davis, really impressive catcher. And the Davis Blue Devils of Yolo County have moved right into the Sierra Foothill League. After years in the Delta League, they fit. They do just fine. Alex Crosno of Bradshaw Chris, a small school wonder. He's got great teammates, Ethan Rickard, David Weiser, Landon Carter, and others. They may win another small school championship, maybe in NorCal again. Aiden Dringenberg of Oakmont, Chris Jackson and Jordan Georgeson know this young man, 6'2" senior, has helped them win multiple championship section in NorCal's. You got to have help. Bo Ogles and Cooper Kunis and other guys. And right on down the line, we got Joey Lorenzini, our Sacramento Bee #1 ranked team. The Rockland Thunder. You got to have help. Dylan News and Troy Elson, and just there's so many guys. The Franklin guys, Dylan Minity, and Dylan Wood. He of the 94, 95, 96 mile an hour fastball, and just he's got personality. So what a great year for baseball and good players. And Ali Silva of McClatchy is the next great one. Landon Plout, we talk about this guy all the time. I just can't get over the Lincoln Zebra star here. Behold the power of Plout. Plout is what I wrote. He's a senior first baseman. He's also the student body president with a 4.1 GPA, 12 home runs, just 3 no-hitters. Wow. But we all know Chris Jackson, as you maybe throw in some more names on here, got to keep the production up in the playoffs. These awards that you give and that we at the Sacramento Bee give, playoff team championship success really matters and separates these guys.
Yeah, it's amazing just looking up and down the section what there is. You've got Aiden Dion, the third baseman from West Park, only a junior. Arizona commit has a 472 average, 15 doubles, 37 RBIs. You've got Bo Blake down at Houston, who just won their third TVL title in the last 4 years. I think I just wrote maybe that's Titletown, right? Like what they've done in football recently with state, NorCal, sections, a TVL football title. Now baseball champs. He's hitting 522. 7 home runs, 9 doubles, 33 RBIs. The guys I mentioned at St. Mary's, like Dax Hardcastle, Tanner Grove. Tanner Grove, a .53 ERA and a 364 batting average. Joey Lorenzini is a great name at Rockland. Broden Thomas at Central Catholic, 5 home runs, 8 doubles, 30 RBIs. Both Dylans from Franklin are in there. Landon Shute from Oakdale. Powerful kid, 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", tall righty. .98 ERA, 61 strikeouts. He's also got 30 RBIs at the plate and a Georgia commit. So everywhere you look in this section. And then I shouldn't forget about Jackson Cook, who's Landon Plout's teammate at Lincoln. He's also got a no-hitter on the resume. He's got 91 strikeouts on the mound with a .47 ERA and a 419 batting average. So there is tremendous star power and a tremendous list of guys that are in the running for Athlete of the Year. And I can confidently tell you right now, usually by this point, I kind of have a favorite of who it's going to be in each sport. I have no freaking idea.
Yeah, Jordan, jump in. I mean, some of these names we already know, but if there's a player or two that we've overlooked or haven't mentioned because there's so many, drop some names.
I mean, the big one in this area that stood out, or the big two, I guess, Lorenzini and then Dylan News over at Rockland. What that kid does with his glove is unbelievable. And, I think a big testament to Rockland's success this season, and especially with the Boras, we always aim at their pitching staff, but they might have the best defense in the entire area. I mean, he makes some plays with his glove that I've seen major league guys miss some of these balls. And, the picture Chris got a few weeks ago, him diving to first base to tag it with his glove because he didn't want to let his pitcher down. He made a few leaping grabs. I mean, he's got to be, if we're giving out gold gloves for high school, this kid has already earned it. And another one I want to give a shout out to is Gavin Otis over at Placer. This kid's only a sophomore and he's making a real name for himself right now. I mean, he, even with a couple slumps on the mound, if you look at some of his stats right now, he's been unbelievable this season. At one with the bat, he's batting 375 this year, leading his team in batting average. And then on the mound, he's been just as impressive. His hold on, his pitching stats are loading real quick. But a 1.73 ERA, 6-1 record. He's got 48 strikeouts against just 14 walks. He's given up 17 runs, but only 9 of them have been earned. And I mean, 7 of those runs, 6 were unearned in a game against NU, were just errors, kind of bit the team a little bit. But I mean, this kid's only a sophomore and he's putting up numbers like this 6'3, 185. So he's got the frame and you got to think he's going to grow into it a little more. That's a kid that probably has D1 written in his cards if he can keep this up. That I want to give a shout out to. And then another one, Cooper Berry and Ben Barley up at Bear River, small town guys. And Caden Nichols up at Bear River, but Cooper Berry, a good, solid two-way guy for them, and Ben Barley too. I mean, that kid can find ways to get hits, and I think Russell Brackett actually could be like a sneaky coach of the year type of guy with just what he's done at Bear River and the sustained success he's had. And there have been teams where it's been kind of carried by Nichols and his arm, but this year it feels like he's really built this program into being something that can be very special, and they've got some young talent coming up too. But those are kind of the first ones that come to mind for me. And then yeah, it's been a good problem. And another one too, Chris, you mentioned Chase Cotton over at Whitney. He's been impressive in his playing time this year. And then one thing I liked about what they did with him is that first game against Oakmont. I think it was 5-4 going into the final inning or something like that. And they actually turned to him as the closer. And Oakmont ended up saying it to extra innings and winning that game. But if that goes to show what a staff like Whitney and what they've accomplished, what they think of this kid, they made him their closer in game 1 against a team that was number 1 in the section coming into the season. I mean, that shows the potential that kid has and what they see in him.
And think of who runs the Whitney pitching staff now. It's the great Bill Gibbs. He was the 12 Bridges head coach for a few years, decades of experience back in the South Bay and the Bay Area, out to here for a guy like him to have confidence in Chase Cotton and those young guys, those pitchers, everything you need to know.
That's really good stuff. You know, we're next week we're peeking ahead. We're going to talk about what the Division I college bounce backs are all about. I think a lot of people understand what it is, but not everybody understands. But we got a lot of them. That's why that's one of the reasons all of our local JCs are really strong. The transfer portal, all these challenges. We talk on this subject one way or another because it impacts a lot of the players that we talk about, a lot of the teams that we talk about, where they're going to go college. We always look ahead. It's not as easy. It's a tougher road. If you're a college football fan, you want to go check out UC Davis's spring game on Saturday. It should be nice weather in Yolo County at 4 p.m. as they rebuild their offense after graduation and all of that. But it's been a terrific program. Tim Plow, one of the good ones anywhere in America in coaching. And also we'll drop some names next week on who Sacramento State continues to bring in football and basketball, which means that some guys have to leave. You can't have a 150-man roster, and we'll talk about that. But for Joe Davidson and or I should say that again, for Chris Jackson and Jordan Georgeson, I'm Joe Davidson. We're the Three Stooges. Give us a follow, give us a watch, follow us on everywhere you could find us. Come up and say hello. We appreciate everybody, and we'll see you next week.